Welcome to the Smart Nonsense Podcast, where we talk about entrepreneurship, self-development, and challenging norms. Today, it is episode 73, and I am talking with quite possibly the smartest person that I met at Brown. And I do not say that lightly, and probably every single person on our floor freshman year, and probably in our grade, would agree. Because, I'll just say his name, Noah. He is someone that would come into our common room at like 3 a.m., and we're all, smart people, at least we'd like to think so. But Noah just comes in, and no matter the topic, he would riff in the most in-depth, just mind-blowing manner. And we're all in awe. And we're in awe both then and a couple months later when we see him on the TV screen in the auditorium on Jeopardy.
Noah Cowan is a freshman at Brown University and got to hold a sloth while visiting Brazil, and you highlighted that on the information card.
Because it's not even a good story, it's just like the happiest moment of my life. I was just like, my family, we were in Manaus, and we were going on the Rio Negro, and then we stopped at this houseboat, this floating houseboat, and this one woman had a sloth, and was offering people to hold it, and then naturally I grabbed it immediately, and then it stuck up my finger, and the sloth grabbed around my finger, and it was the cutest thing ever, and it made me incredibly happy.
Let me guess that somebody got a photo of that.
Yeah, my brother did.
Okay, good for you.
I mean, he's just a fascinating person that we talk about it all. We talk about why he's just so driven educationally. And so he's not like a person that just turtles in the library, just studying all the time. He's someone that just exudes this passion for knowledge constantly. We talk about him taking graduate level courses as a freshman, why he was doing it, why he's dabbled in so many different arenas of knowledge. It's so cool. I mean, we end up talking about even why the U.S. and why we've kind of fallen behind in productivity and why we haven't seen the gains that maybe we did during the space race, why we've dropped behind despite having computers and artificial intelligence improving. It's such a cool conversation. If you want to connect with Noah, you can find him on Twitter at Noah Cowan 2. That's at NOAHCOWAN 2. I'm sure he'll be down to just chat. He's someone who might even start his own podcast because we're just scratching the surface. I wish we had 5 hours to just chat, because that's how deep Noah can just riff on whatever topic we're into. So hopefully this is a good little taster of Noah, and we'll have him on in the future for part 2. But this is episode 73 with Noah Cowan. I don't remember. I guess the last time we talked, because I've been thinking about it, was, I don't know, hockey season? When was the last time
probably,
that we spoke?
Right? It's got to be, basically right after I got my collarbone broken for the second time.
Right. Good God.
In the arena.
It was, I don't know, when we tackle that story, there's so much there. But yeah, I think the last time we were talking.
Drink your milk. I feel like that's the most important thing to get out of that story.
Noah, you took probably 1,000 courses at Brown, but the most important thing you learned was drink your milk.
Just drink your milk. Yeah.
Club hockey to varsity. So here's the thing. I got to get off my mind right out of the gate, because I didn't know you had a Twitter. And then I went on Twitter and I saw you had this fucking post, Noah. Dude, that North Dakota, South Dakota. What in the world? 100,000 likes on that thing?
I know. I did not realize people cared that much about North Manhattan, South Manhattan, North Dakota, South Dakota. It's. I assume that they all liked it just because they thought it was mildly funny that you could split up Manhattan into North and South Dakota. And then people started talking about politics and stuff. And I was like, what? And then it just went crazy.
That I was so confused because I scrolled back up. I'm like, wait, Noah's okay. You got 1,500 people that follow you. All right, the math just wasn't computing here.
Totally came. No, that happened after it blew up. I had about 50 followers before that. No idea how Twitter works at all. If that magically made myself get whatever percentage increase that was.
I think people are just fiending for these cool graphics especially New Yorkers. I think New Yorkers love like the self-centered shit. So basically, we'll put the graphic up on YouTube, but it's you saying take North Dakota and South Dakota, all the population there, and then you can just, I don't know if the word is transpose or like plop that right into the island of Manhattan, and it splits North and South Manhattan.
Cut that, make that little line at like 84th Street, and then like same population as South Manhattan, South Dakota, North Manhattan, North Dakota. It's beautiful. You know,
did you make that? Was that like a little hobby project, or what was
no,
it?
Dude. So I have a bunch of like way worse, like random graphics and stuff that are just on my camera roll. But this is literally just something that I think about often because it's been on my phone for like years. And I just like saw it when I was scrolling through my phone at like 3 a.m. And I was like, LOL, I'll post this. And then I woke up and it was just like huge. And I was so confused. So incredibly confused.
Did anyone reach out or did anyone like contact you because of this post, or was it just like a lot of shit going on and then, you know, it's over a week later or whatever?
No, it was just like a lot of shit. I mean, like all of my like boss and stuff was just like, what's it like to go viral? And that was hilarious, where it was just like yeah, and then like random family members and then like friends from high school and stuff just like saying, hey, saw your post. But yeah, that was like basically it. And now I'm just like, clearly I need to follow this up with another graphic of like one of the like 50 that I just like have on my computer.
But you're actually creating these graphics, or like,
yeah, I mean, like,
is this just like shit's on your head and you're like, let me make it and then I'll put
like,
it out.
As any, you know, incredibly nerdy dude living in the 21st century needs to do, I like spend way too much time looking at a bunch of random data and just trying to make like pretty graphics out of it. So it's just hilarious that this one, which is truly just like you do two colors and then you draw a line through them and then you and you add one little central park, is the one that blows up. Whereas it's just like, I have like these beautiful like chloroplasts or whatever of like the balance of payments from various different states to the federal government. And it's just like that, I feel like, is not nearly as much fun as just like the Dakotas.
The Dakota, because everyone shits on the Dakotas, and then, you know, nothing like having the New Yorkers giving them an excuse to shit on someone else.
That's the thing, though, is I feel like people think that I don't like the Dakotas because of this, where it's really, I love the Dakota. Dude, like Fargo, North Dakota, love it. Minot, North Dakota, like truly great place. I hope that all of my fans and haters in the Dakotas understand that even though I think it's ridiculous that they have 4 senators, I still love them with all of my heart. Like it's a great place.
You're just pointing out the opportunity, like all these New Yorkers that are trying to leave. Look, you could populate all of the Dakotas very easily and comfortably. And there you go.
Exactly. I mean,
so
I guess part of it is just, I think it is kind of silly where it's just like the mere fact of me going like, hey, everything's remote now. If I just move to North Dakota and just like say that that's my like actual residency, the power of my vote for the president goes up like 4 times. Like that's awesome. That's dope. And / not dope / like pretty weird that anybody thought that was a good system.
I know. We need to there's so much. Here's the thing. Okay. Noah, you are literally, I don't know how to nickname you other than like Passion Man or what, like Passion Fruit. You're just Passion Man. I don't know what it is, but you have all these crazy cool pursuits like politics. I mean, we're talking about physics, chemistry, literally fucking everything. It seems like you were into it at one time or another.
I do dabble. I do like dabbling in various different things. I mean, that's part of why I was talking about the like, I feel like being in the 21st century, you just need to do like a bunch of statistics and stuff, because that just, you can dabble in a bunch of different things and pretend that you're just really doing one thing a lot. And that's basically, I feel like, what has been the driving thing throughout, like connecting everything that I do is kind of just like, you can use statistics to give you insight into basically everything. And it's just like this really cool mixture of, oh, we like have rigor that comes from mathematics and that has this like very rigorous background of being able to tell a story. But then you can use that to tell stories about like actual systems instead of just saying like, imagine a cow is actually a sphere. Let's do stuff from that. Instead, statistics is like, yo, we have actual systems of actual particles interacting. Let's tell a story of what would actually happen instead of the cow rolling down the hill. So that's what I've decided is the joining factor, instead of just me being totally ADD about various different things.
And I think that's probably why that leads, what is it, statistician on your Twitter is the first.
Yeah, exactly.
Noun that describes you. And then bad hockey player. I love to see that up there too. But yeah, so let's trace it back first, because God, there's so many different tangents I want to rip with, But if we start, okay, we met freshman year. You went on our floor. You were the person. Okay, I'm gonna put some guilt on you right now. You were the person that made everyone on the floor feel, what is that term of like you don't belong, like you're not smart enough,
like imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. You created that on our floor, because we'd all be chatting, and we had the common room, and like 3 a.m. we're talking about some interesting stuff, and then sometimes you just like you'd come in and just spit your brain's knowledge. And everyone's like, that's an actual smart person right there. What the fuck is that?
Oh my God. Dude, no, I feel like freshman year is just not good for anybody in like various different ways. And I feel like, I don't know. I feel like every time that I look back at myself in like a past life, right? I'm always just kind of like, that dude's kind of annoying. Like low key a dick, And then I feel like that, honestly, freshman year me was less dickish than like kindergarten me, where I was just straight up a bully. And then it's like, all right, me, I was just interested in like way too many things, and clearly needed people to think that and like think that I was interested. Whereas now I feel like I'm more comfortable in just like, all right, statistics is dope, and I'm just going to be a nerd about this and like let everybody do their thing. So if I did that 100%, I totally believe that I was probably trying to be an ass.
Wait, so were you always, like you said, almost to the extent of bullying? Were you like, I guess you're going to private schools and stuff. Was it like academically you were like trying to outshine other kids? Is that what you mean?
I mean, yeah, I feel like you in any system, right? We just have the idea that, all right, like you need to have something, like you need to have some identity, especially if you just like lack the foundational like religion, various other things that like you can form identity on. And I feel like in my household, at least, the like main former of identity is like intelligence. And then if you're going through high school, like with that understanding, like, and I did quiz bowl and like math team and like it's academic, literally think of a nerdy thing that you could do. And I was probably involved in some way. And I feel like that just like brought over into freshman year a little bit of just like, you need to like make sure that other people understand how you like self-identify. And I feel like that was just like a lot of what was probably going on in my head. In case it's not clear, I do a lot of definitely like way too much psychologizing and like pop psychology of way too many things. But that was probably what I was intending to do. I didn't mean to, and legitimately I just like find a lot of shit like super fascinating and like love reading about fucking R&D and the like Fermi paradox and shit. But I don't know, man. That
I don't want to paint you wrong. It wasn't like an arrogant way. It was just your enthusiasm for literally any topic we were talking about was mind-boggling.
That's actually also the thing, though, is I feel like I'm like, yeah, as being like a bully and like when I was a younger kid, I feel like I just didn't have like that. I feel like I connected with people through just like knowing a lot about a lot of different things. So then like the way that I connect with people is just like, oh, you want to talk about like the politics in Sweden right now? Like, I got you, man. Or you want to talk about just like how freaking amazing Braden Holtby is? Like, I got you. Like, that's being in all these different realms is just really about just trying to make those connections that I feel like make humanity possible,
Yeah, I guess that is I've heard cases of people that go to like good schools and they'll just read like the first and last chapter of a book and like the summary just to connect with people. Be like, oh yeah, I read that, but you actually like you knew this shit. You weren't just pretending.
I mean, like, I think that's the thing is, right? Like, in high school, like, there was no way that I could possibly know all the things that I wanted to, like, display that I knew. And then I feel like college is where you actually, like, learn the stuff that you've been pretending to learn, like, most of the time. Hopefully. Or at least that's what I got out of it, was just like, oh my God, like, Crime and Punishment is actually really amazing. Like, I wasn't just bullshitting about it before when I would talk about it. Or like just yeah, there are so many different topics where I feel like definitely in high school, like I was definitely annoying, but have tried to actually fill up the knowledge that I supposedly had with knowledge that I actually have now. If that makes any sense.
It was
so
almost
if this makes
like
you feel any better, yeah, I definitely was just totally a superficial piece of shit in freshman year.
but then you added the depth come college when you took an absurd amount of classes and actually learned the stuff inside and out. I'm curious with your, sorry to riff here, but like your family life, because you said academics was very big. I'm pretty sure your brother went to Harvard, right? So like two kind of smart kids. Maybe there was some sort of, I don't know if it was competitive within the family. Like you're both watching Jeopardy and shit, and you're like, who can get the answers? What was it actually like inside your home?
I mean, but this is like, I don't know. I feel like my fam, we weren't actually like competitive with each other. Like my parents are the most sweet, supportive people like you will ever meet. Like if I just said, "Hey, fam, I just want to do underwater basket weaving for the rest of my life and like go onto a farm," they would go, "Noah, you do you. That's the best." I think that was more like so much of what has come throughout my life has just been the like self pressure of just like, okay, let's just like find that thing that you can like choose to like take on as the thing that like you self identify with or whatever. And I feel like, yeah, it's definitely true that like my family does identify as like, yeah, like we're smart and intelligent and try really hard to like make sure that we're like constantly learning as much as possible. So I feel like I just saw that and like replicated it without the like actual pressure. But like how much do we actually choose in life of like what makes us what, and how much is like us pretending that like we're choosing? I mean, that's most of why I was freaking
getting
obsessed
philosophical
with
now, Noah.
Dude, my senior year was literally like doing way too many random statistical simulations of like the atmosphere and climate statistics, and then a lot of existentialism, and that was just like that just going back between the two of them, and physical therapy for my collarbone. So you know,
it's a complete senior year right there. I mean, it's fascinating. I'm starting to get into some more of that. I don't know if you heard of Jack Karafotis, but he's in Chicago. I was staying with him for a bit, but he's into like nihilism and all that stuff. So I started reading a little bit of Crime and Punishment type stuff. But
oh my God,
I think you're years ahead of the game. With all right, so if we say freshman year, you're clearly the smart kid that's done a lot of quiz bowls. I think you really solidify the name for yourself when everyone's like, "Hey, yo, you guys here? Dylan, you here? Noah's gonna be on Jeopardy." Like, what the Noah, the kid like two doors down, is going to be on Jeopardy?
Oh my God.
What were you always applying to Jeopardy and like just like this is, you know, the epitome of being a cool intellectual?
I mean, like, I think first of all, yeah, like I love the idea that Jeopardy can make reading way too many Wikipedia articles like actually a cool thing, which is part of why I appreciated it so much. And yeah, like I think that was actually the first time I had taken the test and actually applied to go on Jeopardy, which was pretty cool because normally like you have to take a bunch of times because it's kind of random. If you do well enough on the test, then you just kind of get put into like this massive pile of people who they like select some to do auditions. After the audition, I felt like me and the like casting person just like really got along super well. And I was just like wearing a Superman sweater. It was great. It was dope. Nobody could resist that boyish charm. But then it was, yeah. So I was just super lucky to even like get accepted to the audition, I feel like. And then when it happened, I was like, holy shit. Like this is the culmination of years and years of doing Quiz Bowl and ITSAC. And this is going to be like my one last hurrah, was kind of like where I was at with that.
I mean, fuck, I can't picture just a cooler feeling. I'm sure like you were, especially your quiz bowl friends from high school. Actually, there was another person from your school that was on Jeopardy too at one point, right? Or was he after you? I feel like I heard about someone
From Georgetown Day School or from Brown? Because Brown, the dude who was part of BPR, like the organization that was my baby, like throughout all of the Brown Political Review, like throughout all of college, like he ended up winning as a freshman. And I mean, like, I feel like I tutored him, so really I deserve half of the winnings. But but no, that was so dope.
You're still
that was great.
invoicing him.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, but truly, like Drew killed it. Did so much better than I did, and deserves all of the shout outs in the world for really repping Brown the way that it deserves to be repped.
I've been trying
the dude who won in my year, we actually knew each other because we'd competed against each other in Quiz Bowl. Like, because he went to a high school that was like down the street from me, basically. So we would like compete a bunch. And then he won. He beat me.
That's kind of like you hear stories of kids playing hockey together growing up, and then they're in college on different teams, and they're going up against each other. It's basically your version of that, just the smarter version. But so I'm trying to think, because you've always been someone that seems like you would almost never get nervous. Like I forget the
I appreciate
psychology. Like whether, say, depending on your confidence, like you'll go in. If you're really good at something, you'll be like extra confident, and you'll be even better when the lights come on. Were you feeling that way, or what were you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that I agree with you that just given all of the like way too many privileges I've been given in life by just like being born into the family that I was born into, like I have the supreme overconfidence that can only come from that in like most things. And then like, what really started happening though, and like you can watch in the Jeopardy, which is on like Netflix right now, is just Nikki was just so fast on the buzzer and was just crushing me. And then like you can just see like the look on my face just like go in like south, like as the game is happening, and I'm just like, I'm getting so frustrated right now. But then, dude, the craziest thing is just that final Jeopardy though. Where it's, I mean, like, so basically to anybody who hasn't seen it, which I imagine is most people.
We'll put some B-roll if it's not illegal on the YouTube version.
Oh my God. It's just, so US history is my thing. It's like, it is my love. It is the one thing that it's my gateway. It was my gateway drug into nerddom. Like watching the History Channel when History Channel had history on it was like my favorite thing in the world, like learning about the American Revolution and just getting super excited about like the Enlightenment was what I did when I was in like elementary school because I'm a nerd. And so when the final Jeopardy topic is US presidents, I'm like, oh, bro, I got to go for it. But the problem is the way the college Jeopardy championship works is it's like, there are wild card spots. So if you're one of the top scorers for like the non-winners, then you go on, but you don't know what the scores are for the rest of the people. So I was just like, should I actually bet a lot or should I not? I had no idea. And then like, I ended up betting like a couple thousand. And then I was like, wait, I don't want to bet any of this. Can I stop this? Until like the people were back in the backstage after we had like put in the amounts. And then they were just like, nah, no, you can't do that. And then it doesn't matter. The question is like, he's the only 20th century president who never gave an inaugural address. I start writing in Ford because I'm like, yo, that dude never got elected. Like nobody wanted him. Nobody cares. But then I remember that he gave like a pretty famous inaugural address that was basically just like, I know that you all hate me. Like nobody wants me. It's a long national nightmare, but it's over now. Nixon sucked. Let's just live with me for a little bit of time. So I was like, shit, who the hell could it be? And then I write in like Coolidge because nobody cares about Coolidge. And then it was Ford. And I disputed that for like a couple years, like legit to this day. I'm like still emailing Jeopardy, just like, are you sure though? Like, are you really sure? But that's just most of that. So that was just way too long of a story, and I just needed to get that out there. And we can just cut that. We can just get rid of it.
I love it. I want to go even deeper because I remember. So my brother, when I was in 4th grade, he got on Wheel of Fortune. It's like the blue collar version of Jeopardy. And basically, like we get there and it's crazy because you have this whole audience and obviously they're there on TV, but you don't see them. But like so many people watching, all the lights on. The set's actually smaller than you'd think. But I feel like I would be literally crapping my pants, but you look so confident on stage. Like, does that affect your knowledge? Like after the fact, you're like, oh shit, I obviously knew that, but the pressure.
In high school, I had done this thing called It's Academic, which is watched by about like 50, 75-year-olds like in their houses. But it's like airs and it's like on stage and it's like on like local like NBC TV or whatever. So the like lights and everything are like still there. So I feel like the first time that I was on that, I was like super nervous. But after you just like have the lights and you like have the pressure of like, all right, I'm just going to be answering some like questions of things that I know, like for a little bit, like down. That's part of why I feel like I was prepared for Jeopardy when I like came onto it and was able to feel like more confident until, Nikki savaged me.
Fucking Nikki. With the preparation side, because I've heard, what is it, James Holtheiser? How do you say his name? You probably watched Jeopardy more than me. The guy that went on the run forever.
After I went on, like every time that I'd listen to the Jeopardy music, it would give me like PTSD. It became like a stressful process of like listening to it and thinking about Gerald Ford just like whispering into my ear, just like, our long national nightmare has just begun. And that's basically why I didn't watch any of James's episodes because it was too painful.
That's brutal. So your love is gone to some extent.
It's returning. It's like time heals all Jeopardy related wounds.
Did you think? Because I don't know if it was talked about like when people were prepping, but basically what I've heard him say is like everyone has a lot of knowledge. Like it doesn't come down to knowledge; it comes down to Nikki. Like whether you can just buzz in faster than everyone else. Were you thinking about that when you were prepping, or was that like not? Yeah,
no, that was a big part of my prepping. But the problem is, it's just really hard to prep for that because it's like you need to time it exactly for when Trebek like stops talking, and then these yellow lights flash, and then right after the yellow lights flash, you're able to like press the button. But if you like buzz in early, then it locks you out. So it's like you need to get it perfectly timed. Like you need to be in sync with Trebek. Basically, it's just like,
and they don't give you any practice. It's just like you go.
You do like a little bit of practice beforehand, but it's like 4 questions, and then like you just kind of you're out. Or at least that's what it's like for the college tournament because they're just like so many people. So it's just like everybody does like 4 questions and then you rotate, and then it's like, and then you're done. Then you just got to go.
Jesus. I can't imagine. One, I mean, it's just dope to be there. And then this thing happened to my brother where like you're on the show, but it doesn't air for a little bit. And now there's all this hype. And my brother had like, he blew it so bad. He had like enjoying the great outdoors and it was missing maybe 1 or 2 letters. And he guessed M. And it's like, for enjoy. I'm not describing it well, but he basically guessed the dumbest letter you could. And like, we're like, Patrick, what the fuck? Everyone in the audience is like, and so now you have 3 months of just waiting, and it's like I want to tell people about this, but I know I just flubbed the stupid question and didn't win it. Like, that what was your take coming back? Because there is a lot of hype now, and you didn't win. What
yeah, exactly. No, that's legit. I mean, that's part of the most difficult thing is like, yo, you gotta like wait to find out when secretly you're just like, I lost and I'm sad. Oh my god, right? It's just like, yo, I'm really excited about it, and then there's just it really perfects your just like acting of just like being able to get through so much pain and suffering and just put on a good face in front of that.
It was gnarly because I remember we were in one of the big auditoriums, Metcalf or something, I forget, but it was like, wow, regardless, I think everyone's just like, that shit's dope. Like, you're obviously fucking 100 times smarter. Like, we would never be there. And it's just badass. But it's like,
no, that was hilarious. That was a hilarious moment of just like, there was so much in freshman year. That's just, I feel like I just have all these ridiculous stories that just like exist from college that are just like truly just random things.
Literally, your life is just random excellence all over the place. So here's my question, because I was talking to Henry earlier about how you basically took like all these grad level, upper level courses since like day one. How the hell were you scheming your way into them? Why'd you take 1 million of them? Like,
Well,
I'm
yeah,
asking
that's the
too many
thing. Is
questions.
it's like I feel like generally my take on what I wanted to do in college was I'm not sure that like physics is exactly what I want to do, but I want to like learn as much as possible and just like try to challenge myself as much as possible. So like, sure, there are these classes where I might not have all of the prerequisites for it or whatever, but I was just like, this seems like because of my like really awesome like background and privileges that I like had in high school, where I was able to take like a lot of courses that like might not have prepared, that like were made it possible for me to think like, oh yeah, I could totally take this like graduate level quantum class in freshman year or whatever. Where it was like, I felt like it would have been too much repeat to like do the normal like path where I would have been like going over a lot of stuff that I'd learned. So I wanted to like keep challenging myself, but it definitely led to me also having to spend way too much time in my room just like reading like 5 different textbooks because I had not at all had the preparation that was necessary for like so many of these like graduate classes.
Right.
Like,
It's like
oh
be
my God.
over prepared for undergrad classes or underprepared for grad. And you're like,
Exactly.
Let's challenge
And,
like Gretzky, play up.
I chose the one that definitely led to me having way too many Saturday nights just like hugging 4 different like quantum mechanics textbooks and wondering what in the world is going on and how are things teleporting. But no, that was definitely a choice.
Did you start changing your approach as the years went on? Like, were you like, all right, I'm gonna dial it back a little bit? Because I mean, freshman year we were on the same floor, obviously, but then I know people tend to split off. Like, what ended up happening? Did you change how you approached taking courses after that?
No, you think I would have like after, so in my like second semester, like I did not do great. Like in my second semester, like I was definitely working my way too hard. But then like the next semester, I was just like, all right, let's just do that again. Now I know how to do it. Like was kind of the thing. And I feel like honestly, something that I really appreciate was like kind of like, yeah, not doing perfectly in like that second semester because it like made it possible for me to go like, okay, like even if I challenge myself and I don't like do perfectly and like get a 100 on every single test, like I still exist and I still feel like smart and I still feel like I learned a bunch of stuff. And like, this is like a way to really like solidify my like depth of knowledge. And I feel like that honestly led to me feeling like, okay, I don't need to just like display my intelligence as much and like feel like, oh, I need people to like know how smart I am, because even when I like don't get even if I like get like a B in Orgo or whatever, like I'm still able to feel like I'm a smart kid. I learned a lot of things. It's more important for me to like learn really deeply about like what is happening in like statistical mechanics, or like when we like create a partition function, like what are we actually doing, or like all these different things that were just like bumbling around, where I felt like without the need to like keep a perfect like GPA or whatever, it made it a lot more possible for me to actually enjoy the stuff that I was learning. And I feel like that is part of what led to like the transformation of me to like actually get the depth that we were talking about before.
I'm thinking because there are a lot of people that, one, even though Brown's like, oh, you can take as many classes as you want, SNC, which I ended up doing a lot of the second half of college because it was like, grades don't actually fucking matter at the end of the day, unless you're going to grad school. But were you like, because you kind of been playing with law and stuff like that, I feel like that's to some extent important. Did you think you're like, I'm taking high enough level classes, it won't matter that much? Or what did you think there?
I mean, like, yeah, I feel like part of it is the supreme overconfidence that I had, where I was kind of just like, okay, well, that happened in the past. I still totally believe in myself for all of these classes that I'm taking, I totally can get all A's, like, if I want. Like, I want to go to grad school. I want to do, like, both law and statistics, like, are the two things that are just, like, constantly popping back and forth in terms of, like, what would actually be able to improve the world the most in terms of, like, the skill set that I have. And so, yeah, that's, like, the kind of mindset that I have in terms of deciding what, but definitely grades are important to me in terms of like my future plans. So it wasn't more so as like, oh, like it will totally be fine. It was more just, I want to be able to learn as much as I possibly can. And I feel like a grad school will understand that I was challenging myself a lot, that I was trying to like just learn as much as I can, because like that's who I am, right? Is like, I feel like a grad school will understand that the point of grad school is to be challenged and to be thrown into like this realm where you have to be diving and you have to be doing a bunch for yourself. And if the best way for me to learn how to dive headfirst into something that I'm like probably underprepared for and just like learn a fuckload of stuff like really fast, I feel like that is better preparation for grad school than taking like easier classes and getting an A. So like I'll be better prepared for grad school, even if I might not get into like the first choice one that I want to, even though I hope I will.
And I mean, that's the thing. You have like one, they just see the transcript and be like, what the fuck? No one else is taking these classes. And then you get there for whatever interview and like, the Noah charisma just winning me over. The more he explains all his knowledge, it's game over. So you can find a little backdoor regardless of the grades.
Right. Like, I mean, and yeah, I feel like Brown's an awesome place. I think that it was that like semester there where I was just like, what do I want more? Do I want to have not as good of an education and not as much knowledge, but definitely like a safe ride to like better grades? Or do I want to like really try to force myself to like learn as much as possible with the understanding that there's a lot of risk that's involved in that and that I might not get into like the best grad school like in the world because of it? And I decided, and I think that I appreciate like how I chose, but I think that there are a lot of different like factors that are involved for other people.
When you were picking courses, were you just like going through and it's like, oh, this shit looks interesting. Oh, this looks pretty cool. And because I know you kind of, I forget exactly what you were doing for concentrations. Like you had the physics and chemistry.
Chemical physics. Yeah.
Yeah. Chemical physics. But were you always set on that track, or were you like just exploring in the beginning and then you kind of like, all right, I guess I'll settle on this, or not settle, but decide on this?
I mean, honestly, I feel like I did it totally wrong in terms of how I like chose classes. Like I chose class. I was doing chemical physics, but chemical physics, because of my advisor and because it's such a small concentration, like you have so much leeway in terms of the classes that you're taking that I was able to totally go like, oh, this looks cool. This looks cool. But I was still definitely doing it with the sense of like, I definitely want, like I was taking courses as though I definitely wanted to do like chemical physics grad school, like very much particularly, instead of more just like, I want to take just the classes that are interesting to me. So it was like I took the courses that were super cool in terms of chemistry and physics and like the tools that are required for that, like comp sci and stuff like that. But to be honest, like this something that is one of my favorite things in the world is just like econ, like legitimately like building various different models to get a more full understanding of actual human behavior is basically just statistical mechanics, but applied to like humanity. So I'm just like, I feel like I would have taken more of those classes if I had just been going solely on what is actually interesting to me, instead of the idea of chemical physics is definitely like what I want to do. I mean, like, to be fair, I feel like it's a lot harder to learn statistical mechanics without a professor and without somebody who's like you're actually able to like walk through it with than it is to learn like basic advanced micro and macro. But that's most of where I'm coming from, I guess.
Funny
There's
little
thing. I feel like
there's a lot. I guess we'll start here with this little anecdote. So the other day, Henry and I were talking about econ, and because we're like, all right, take our whole college experience and like, what's the fundamental like maybe 1, 2, 3 things that we learned, and one of them's like, oh, the importance of supply and demand. And we're like, all right, well, what the hell is that? And I thought about my brother, who I mentioned before, Patrick. He has a roofing company. He's like, why the hell do I have to go and pay a roofer like $50 an hour? Like, where does that come from? And so now we're like, okay, I wonder how good everyone at Brown's fundamental knowledge is that took econ. So I'm like, let me try to explain why it's $50 an hour to like a 7-year-old. And it's so hard because everyone's used to like all the curves and they're like, oh, well, you know, if this is where equilibrium is. And it's like, dude, a 7-year-old isn't going to get that. Just simplest terms. Why is it $50 an hour or whatever? And none of our friends had a good answer. So I almost want to, I don't want to put you on the spot, but like, because you didn't take a ton of econ, but like, maybe I'll ask you that, like, could you give that a shot? Like, how would you explain why in the labor market my brother would have to pay $50 an hour for like a roofer?
A roofer. For a roofer.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, like,
if this is too hard of a question, I know this is a random just idea.
I feel like that's a perfect example of just like the beauty of markets. So yeah, I mean, like, first off, in terms of everything, my huge, basically, like, guiding purpose, if I have one at all. No, this is not true. This is not a true statement. The guiding thing is like statistics, but my view basically about like various different things in politics and like understanding is that markets are awesome and are amazing and are like something that do an absolutely fantastic job of creating prosperity. And even though the markets might not do a good job of distributing that prosperity like properly, so there exist places for governments to like fix the various inequalities and inefficiencies that are like brought out from markets. So that's like a whole other thing. The R&D piece that like I think is super, super important in terms of like government funding of like research and development. But that's like a whole nother topic. The one that we're going back to is the idea of like, this is a brilliant example of markets. Although like you would probably bring stuff into because of roofers. The reason that's like $50 an hour is because of the regulations that exist around like who is allowed to be a roofer, especially in like, where are you right now? Like, but this is not important.
Well, he's in Rhode Island, so he's actually from Providence.
Dope.
But
yeah, Rhode Island definitely
50,
has a
whatever
lot of
the
stuff.
number is.
But yeah, no, I was just saying like 50, it'd probably be high because of like regulations or whatever. But the main thing that I would say is just, think about how many people are just like growing up and going, I totally want to be a roofer one day. And that's just what I want to do. There's not that many people, right? Like they're like some people who like end up who have like their dad's a roofer and like, you decide to be a roofer, but generally it's like not like the super most popular profession in the world. Right. But then you got a bunch of everybody has a roof, right? Like you got millions and millions of roofs, even in just like Rhode Island. So then naturally you're thinking, like that one roofer or those like 5 roofers who thought, I totally want to be a roofer one day, have to go around to the millions and millions of houses and fixing up all the things, especially in Rhode Island where there's hail and stuff coming down. So you constantly you have this natural disparity between how many people there are and how many houses. So you'd want to pay that person to come to your house instead of going to another house, right? So instead of like going to Dylan's house, like right now, why don't you come to my house right now and I'll pay you like a little bit more? And then it seems like it would make sense for it to be like $50 an hour because that would be like pretty high for a roofer. And that's how I would probably explain it, right? It's just like at a basic level, there's like a supply and demand like mismatch because of the number of roofs there are and how terrible the weather is around versus the people who are trained to be roofers.
Right. That's basically what we came to. We kind of phrased it because we realized like in our heads what makes the most sense is like a little auction. So like all these people, whether you consider like the company, like my brother, or like individual people with roofs, they're all like, hey, I'll pay this much. And it's like, any takers? And I'll pay like $20 an hour. And like maybe there's one dude that's like, I'll take it for 20 and put it up again. No one else for 20. How about 30? This roof. Oh, I'll take 30, whatever. And then eventually there's a point where like there are no more people offering like over $50 an hour. Or like all the roofers are taking. God, I'm explaining this poorly. That's why it's so hard.
I get you. No, it's actually really funny that you mention auctions though as like a way for markets to work, just because auctions are one like hilariously inefficient at like actually getting done, which or like setting the right price for something, like as opposed to a market where it's just like, vaguely like the right amount will happen because somebody needs to clear something and somebody else needs to like get rid of it. Whereas an auction, because there exists like only one theoretical idea of something, the winner will necessarily be on the high end of their valuation of that particular service, right? So like if a market is just a connection and a like convolution basically of a bunch of different people's ideas, and then the average is like the true value of like what that should be worth, the winner of that auction will necessarily be the person who values it at a price that is way different from what the actual market values at. That's why auctions are awesome for like these like cars and stuff, because you're able to get really, really high prices, which are way different from what the actual value of it is worth, and why you should never, very rarely buy things at auctions.
While we were talking, I'll just riff off this for a second. This guy, I don't know if you've ever heard of Alinea, but it's Alinea Group, like some of the best restaurants in the world. He's a big, just sort of stats guy and just approaching like econ, and so he does the reverse auction where he starts high, like he starts way over the price,
Yeah.
and he just works his way down until someone cracks and is like, oh shit, are they gonna, like, he'll start at like $1 million, but you know
Yeah.
the final price is probably around $500,000, but he's gonna get someone that bids like 700,000 just because they're scared.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
you
No,
never
dude,
know like what everyone else thought.
those auctions are especially bad, right? Because like when you're going down from the bottom up, then you have like information about other people, right? Like you have information that's like being added of they're dropping out here, they're dropping out here, they're dropping out here. Whereas if you're coming from the top down, you're just like, what's happening, man? Oh my god,
I know.
it's
I'm getting more fascinated in the, like that's sometimes I'll start to nerd out properly, like in Noah fashion, just about these topics.
yeah. I
Have
mean,
you?
dude, no,
I know we mentioned. Oh, sorry. Go.
no. I was just gonna say auctions are dope. I mean, yeah, it's just like basic like operation / informational theory of just like thinking about things as a statistical like you model like people's behavior like with statistics, and it just enables you to do so much. I feel like in terms of like thinking about this, right? Like the statistical like true mean is like what you'd want for. That's like what markets enable you to get is like something that's at the true mean and the true mean price of like, oh, there are a lot of, because the reason that the auction for the plumber thing like doesn't really work is the idea is that there's somebody who wants a plumber for like $900 and would pay $900 because the roof is literally collapsing right now or something. So they want the plumber like really bad. Whereas like there's somebody else who's just like, yeah, I mean like there's some dinks in my roof, but like it's nothing like something's falling through. So then like what the market actually does is kind of builds this idea that all right, we can like serve the right number of people and also have the right number of people. So the market price will be an average functionally of like between the people who like really need it. So the person who really needs it actually lucks out really well for the idea that it's like, oh, it's only $50 an hour, even though like I need this person absolutely right now. Whereas the person who's like not willing to pay it just doesn't get the service.
Were there any cool ideas or like big takeaways? I know we mentioned calcium and drinking milk for bones, but like other stuff from college that really stands out as like something that you came in not expecting to learn, and you're like, oh, this is fundamentally changing how I look at the world.
I mean, I think the
big ass question. I know.
No, I mean, I think we've kind of went over the thing that I feel like was most important to me, that most changed through my like college career, which is really like my relationship with knowledge and my relationship with like also with myself, but like with myself like through knowledge in terms of just gaining an understanding for like, wow, actually intrinsically understanding and like having a really like thorough knowledge of something feels a lot better than constantly feeling like I am lying to myself about this, so then I need to like show other people like how I feel and like what I know and stuff like that, right? So it's like building an understanding of knowledge is beautiful for its own sake and actually believing that instead of just saying it is is something that I learned through college. And I think that it's something that like, yeah, I have no idea what exactly, I mean, yeah, I think it's just something that kind of like develops. And I think that's honestly just like being like more mature is something that like, and Brown just being a great place to learn and like grow and talk to people and just like feel like, oh wow, like when I have something that I'm like passionate about or really like, then I'll try to read a bunch of things about it and try to really get like a deeper knowledge about it. And that's harder when you have like 50 things that you really like, but trying to like narrow it down is probably a good thing.
50 things. Yeah, most people are just like maybe 2-3 things, but no, it's always at least 50. With learning in general, one, I guess a quick rapid fire question. Feynman, do you think he's overrated or underrated?
Dude, I was gonna ask. We should totally play overrated, underrated. But I feel like Feynman is underrated in terms of like what he has meant to a lot of like scientists in terms of like scientific discovery and going like, wow, like he actually does do a really good job to scientists of making things beautiful again and like reinvigorating your love for something that you already loved. Like that's what I think that Feynman does a great job of. Is like if you already am in, if like I am in love with quantum mechanics or whatever, I'm in love with like thinking about the universe at its like origin. And Feynman does a really good job of, if I'm feeling like kind of disillusioned with science, to pull me back in and make me realize that the questions that science are asking, however esoteric they may be, are really beautiful at their root. Whereas for most people, I think that it's like totally useless to read Feynman because he really does not try that hard to actually communicate science. Like people say that he's like a really great science communicator, and I think that that's just a lie. Like for people who have not taken like physics, at least like multiple like physics courses, he doesn't try to really give that much to you. Like you read like QED, you read like the Feynman lectures, and he goes like, this is a cool thing, try it out for yourself. And that's awesome if you have like some base knowledge, but otherwise just kind of makes you feel bad about yourself, I feel like.
So is he more so like actually a good teacher just when you're not at the 0 to 1 stage, but like 1 to N stage? Or is he more so like the Gary V inspirational version of physicists?
Oh my God. I mean, like he's like is probably one of the most brilliant people who has like ever existed on this planet, like just in terms of like his mind and being amazing. He is based off of the people who like he also was an advisor for and like a research advisor for, also is a really amazing teacher in that way. He does a really good job of also bringing a lot of people into like because it's so easy to get disillusioned in science and physics, like especially now where it's just like so many of the questions that physics is asking are not like why do balls roll down a hill, and are more like how can we properly optimize the understanding of like how water looks around alcohol for no particular reason other than the idea of that knowledge, which again, I love knowledge for knowledge's sake. And it is truly beautiful. And it is great to like be able to push out the like boundaries of human knowledge, like beyond a little bit, but it's sometimes hard to keep that like momentum and that like beauty and that understanding of the beauty of what you're doing without having a little bit of a kick in the pants from Feynman. So I feel like more, yeah, like he, for the people who he was an advisor for, like definitely did an absolutely fantastic job and like nurtured some of the like most brilliant scientists of the like next age. And like in terms of his writing, really beautiful and encouraged a lot of people to stay in science. But in terms of like other things for that, yeah.
Did you have, because I know there's like the Feynman technique, and I got another overrated, underrated after this, I'll ask you, but for study techniques, did you do anything in particular? Were you like, for example, I'll always try and just tell myself stories, especially with history, like you being into US history. I remember the A-Push exam, just for 36 hours straight, I was pacing around my house, just starting from like 1600 or whatever the AP exam started. And I just told myself the whole history of the US. Like, do you have a particular approach to studying?
Yeah. I mean, like in terms of how I study, it's definitely depends on the topic, but I think telling yourself stories and then doing a bunch of problems or doing whatever is like going to be asked of you is like the most helpful thing that I did like when I was in college, right? It's like doing problems, because you can think like, okay, I totally understand like why we did all of the like math, especially in like physics and stuff. You can totally feel like I understand why we did all this basic math. But then when you actually are faced with a problem and you have to sit with that like massive discomfort of going like, what in the world is going on here? How do I apply the things that I know to like what is happening right here? Physics teaches you to just sit with discomfort in a way that nothing else really has that I like have done. And I love that about physics. But it's also something that makes it really hard to just like do a bunch of problems because you have to just sit down and feel like you're doing absolutely nothing. But the fact is, when you are sitting down and feeling like you're doing absolutely nothing is where like physics actually happens, is where all learning actually happens, right? Is like the feeling of discomfort, the feeling of being pushed outside of your comfort zone, the feeling of like actually needing to go beyond and apply anything that you might have learned is where some of the most beautiful like stuff actually happens. And that's so my study technique is definitely doing problems. And even if you feel like it's a waste of time, and even if you feel like you're just not doing anything, it can lead to beautiful results once you're done like banging your head against the table for a little bit.
I was never patient enough for that. I'd start banging my head against the table and just continue because I never figured out the answer. But
oh yeah, I mean, like
yeah. What are you saying?
No, what'd you go down?
Well, I was gonna say I should have worn my Seek Discomfort sweatshirt today.
Yeah, I mean,
inappropriate.
Legit, dude. It's just so true. I feel like that honestly, yeah, is one of the things that I've just like tried to do is just find something that challenges me and makes me like uncomfortable so that I have no choice but to like figure it out. Right. It's just like there's so many questions out there. Like the bounds of human knowledge are like built by, or like the bounds of human like capacity are built by the questions that we can ask and can't answer. Right. And it's just like the point of research and why I do love like research jobs is just like you're just trying to push that boundary out a little bit, right? You're trying to make it like possible for humans to do a little bit more and ask a little bit more. And then the only way that you're able to push that boundary out is through just like seeking discomfort and seeking to be in that like liminal zone between like what we know and what we could like have yet to know. And that's
God damn it. I wish podcasts could be 8 hours long because I feel like that's how long we need. But in terms of pushing boundaries, what boundary are you just shoving right now that's really most exciting to you?
I mean, I think what I'm trying to like do and where I feel like the most valuable things that I can do right now is just learning a lot and trying to like be discomfort there. Like I get that there has to be a point where you like stop just constantly trying to learn and then you have to like create, and that's what research is and why research is like super dope. I feel like probably right now I definitely lean too much into like the learning things just because knowledge for knowledge's sake is something that's like beautiful. I think that when I ask myself a question, like there are a lot of questions that I'm asking right now, like about R&D and like the ways that like, yeah, the question that I have been focused on and that I have like have 500 tabs open on my like Google Chrome right now open about is that question of, or I guess there are two questions that are kind of related, which is one, what the hell happened to like corporate R&D and the productivity boom that happened in like the 70s and 80s, and why does that not exist? And two, why does that not exist, especially now where we have access to so much of the knowledge and the collected human knowledge that has existed like in basically for our entire lives? Like, why do we not have the productivity gains that we should? Right? Like we're able to automate so many of these different tasks that we weren't able to before. We're able to figure something out without having to like look through various different encyclopedias. We're able to find like research that was done across an entire ocean like 5 seconds ago and that was published. Like, why do we not have the productivity gains that it seems like we should from computers and from technology? And I truly don't think that there has been a good answer to that question. And that's something that I'm trying to figure out.
I'm trying to think like where that surges from. Like, why do you get so into this in particular? Is it because you're kind of doing some machine learning stuff right now? Does it come from that, or where do you think it comes from?
No, I mean, I think it just comes from the idea that, so throughout my life, I've tried to just think of what is the most effective way to like help people, right? And that's why I'm like an effective altruist. I did the like give 10% pledge or whatever. There's just like, it's really important to like try to help people like both through like your job and through like the giving that you could possibly do. And I feel like so many of the issues that exist stem from the fact that we lack some form of like common cause. And I think that that's what Matty Iglesias was like trying to get at when he like wrote 1 Billion Americans, is just the idea that like when we have a common cause to fight for, like as a race or as like as the human race or whatever, right? Like we are able to do so much. And that's what, when I would land in Logan Airport, I don't know, like many listeners have like landed in Logan, but when you're walking through the terminal and when you're leaving, especially like in my senior year when it was like the 40th anniversary or the 60th anniversary of like JFK announcing the like space race, they were getting super excited and played the like we choose to go to the moon and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Just like kind of they just kept playing that speech and walking through that hall with all of the like dozens and dozens of inventions that were made possible by the like research that we'd done in the space race. It just gets you excited. It just gets you like to realize the amazing capacity of what humans are capable of when we have some common cause and some common purpose. And I think that the reason that I focus on like R&D in terms of that is because I have like images of the space race and the idea that that common cause enabled us to push human knowledge like so much further than we had ever thought possible, and that enabled like an entire time of like radical acceleration of elimination of poverty and just spread of success and prosperity in a way that like I don't think anybody who lived in like the 1890s could have ever thought possible. And I feel yeah, what's up?
Well, do you need, because you say like the common cause, but at the same time there was almost the common enemy of the Soviets. Like you kind of need both, and is that? I guess I don't know if we're missing both right now, but
no, I mean like, I think that's one of the things that I grapple with a lot is the idea that there was this like enemy that existed for the United States to like compete against with Russia. But I feel like there exists, like humans are capable of conceptualizing things, right? Like I feel like it's too easy to just write it off as like, oh, there was like a tangible threat to like America, so that's why we decided to invest like billions of dollars into getting a man on the moon. Like it seems like that was more just like a dick measuring contest between like two countries than it was like an actual like threat to like national security in any way, or something like in terms of the space race, not in terms of like USSR and Cold War and all that stuff, which truly seems like whack to have like lived through. But the thing that I feel like is conceptually there exists an enemy, which is like all of the problems that exist right now. Like poverty exists as a big issue that like we could have as like a common cause, or like or global warming could exist as something that seems like we could have like common movement against, right? Like there exist things that should unite us and that could theoretically unite us, that seem to be used for purposes that I feel like lead to like distrust in society in general. And that's honestly something that was like the other big thing that I have been like looking into and trying to get a bigger understanding of, is like what leads to distrust in society of society's institutions. Because there was a point in time when like we had massive trust in like society's institutions, in like the Supreme Court, in like our the fact that our government would like, even if it messes up, would be trying to do what is best, or even in like the opposing political parties, right? Like there existed a time when we had like trust that people would basically do what was right. And I feel like something happened, and I'm not really sure what. I personally feel like there exist like a lot of things, and I have ideas, but I don't feel like sharing them right now, of just like what led to like the massive decrease in trust in like the institutions that we have. And I don't think it was an instant thing. I think it was a gradual decline. But I think that it's something that is why we can't really have a common enemy anymore, right? Like if we lack the trust in our institutions to tell us like what we need to be scared of in terms of a conceptual enemy, then there's no way to form an actual common enemy. Even if we had like Russia is insane right now. Russia should probably be our enemy right now. And yet we don't seem to like have some form of actual like unified front of how to deal with the idea that there is an autocrat who is actively against the United States, just like ruling a country that is incredibly large and has a large nuclear arsenal. Like that seems weird. And that seems like there's a flaw in our institutions that makes it such that people are more worried about a massive like pedophile ring that like exists throughout all of elite democratic circles, instead of thinking about like the actual enemy to the security interests of the United States. So yeah, but that's
so you're thinking some, I don't know exactly when in your mind, but sometime like,
yeah, there was a lot
on just compounding factors.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like Nixon obviously like started like a whole wave of just like people probably can't trust their government as much, and just like because of the amount of like distrust that like got involved in there. But then after that, you just have succeeding factors that build to the idea that like you can't trust both what is. I mean, like the idea that the CIA was just doing all this insane shit like all over the world, like putting microphones into kittens to try to spy on the Kremlin. Like that's the least of their like crimes, but is like absolutely hilarious in terms of indicative of like what the CIA was doing around the world. Like trying to get an exploding cigar to like murder Castro. Like what? Like why is that what you chose? I don't know. I feel like reading about the CIA, I mean like, and obviously MK Ultra, which was literally just like the CIA secretly like microdosing and like actively giving people acid so that they thought they were going crazy to attempt mind control, seems like something that would lead to distrust of that institution. Like I totally understand why there exists distrust of a lot of the institutions, but I think that we can reform institutions such that they could be better instead of trying to burn it all down in any particular way. Like I think that there exists these like small incremental changes that we can make to society, like in terms of like how we file our taxes or in terms of how we just interact with government, that could do incredibly great things for building that trust again between people and their institutions.
All this distrust in the system that started somewhere around Nixon, CIA, a lot of shit going on. You're trying to figure out, get to the bottom of what are the root causes, and then how can we maybe fix that? Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I think that it might be part of it is like trying to understand the root causes, but I think more so just trying to either rebuild that trust or develop some way for people to, yeah, just like believe in something again, right? Like that sounds like the most like, what's it called? Like when you have oh my God, I can't believe I'm forgetting the word. Platitudinous, like a statement ever, a cliched thing ever, where it's just like you got to believe in something again. But truly, I feel like there exists such a problem with the fact that, all right, I guess, yeah, it's hard to understand which way the like causality goes. And that's part of the problem is like, there's a fact that we have like a lack of trust. There's a fact that we have like no like common goal. The idea that we have no common goal like slightly comes out of like the lack of like trust, and trust comes out of the goal. But I feel like the reason why I am really focused on the idea of like federal R&D funding and like the idea of R&D as like a way to rebuild the trust that is lacking in society is because what I think is the most important and the most important thing that like a government can do is developing funding for the basic research that is ignored by private companies. And I think that private companies obviously will do what's best like for their shareholders, and even if they like say that they won't, then they probably still will. So you should have like the government doing what the government should do, which is funding basic research and allowing companies to implement and create like technologies out of that basic research, right? I think that the reason that that is something that can rebuild trust and can lead to having like a common cause is because the gains that happen from basic research like improvements, such as like things that have happened in the past that happened when like the United States had a defined particular like research objective. I mean, like, but had like particular basic research goals involve like literally improving the automobile, involve like developing all like the computer and the internet and Xerox and printers and like all of these different things that are like made possible by basic research that happens, like that the government can fund, and then a bunch of inventions can stem from that like basic research. But what happens is we have like companies today that obviously are both obsessed with short-termism, just like because of the natural way that they have to respond to shareholders, and also just naturally have to respond to shareholders, so wouldn't want to develop things that are necessarily in like the public's interest, even though research itself and basic research itself is in the public interest. So when you have a situation where it's like, oh, like Facebook, right? Facebook has spends millions in R&D, or Amazon even. Let's focus on like Amazon. Amazon spends billions and billions every year in R&D. It's why they pay no taxes, right? I love R&D. R&D is great. But the best way to like get something that will actually change the lives of millions of people is probably to actually try to use those billions to invest in something that is like a computer, or is that as revolutionary as the internet, instead of spending billions and billions for Amazon to solve particular problems that are related to their supply chain, or that are related to the particular algorithm that they use to get people to click on that brand of dog food instead of this brand of dog food. And that's like not something that I hold against a company, because obviously the company's shareholders will want the company to do what's in the interest of the shareholders. But it's something that I think the government can step in to fix that market error in a way that leads to the development of all these technologies and jobs that will reinvigorate a sector of the United States that does not really exist right now, right? Like there's the idea that you don't need to like put up barriers to trade, but you can actually just like develop technologies, create a manufacturing sector that could actually be worthwhile to build in the United States, that might be near some of those like research hubs that we develop in the United States. And that gets rid of some of the distrust of institutions when people are actually doing better, right? Like a lot of distrust of institutions can come from socioeconomic like frustration. So if you solve some of that socioeconomic frustration of feeling left behind, feeling like people are just talking down to you because, like you have a job as like a machine learning engineer and I'm like a worker in a manufacturing plant, and like it can feel like a machine learning engineer is trying to get rid of the job of the person in the manufacturing plant. But the point of basic research is not to do that, but is to develop new technologies and new jobs that we can create. And that's what led to the boom that happened in like the 70s and 80s and around that time. And that led to some of the like least inequality that we have seen in America's history, is just because we had the research fundamentals that were developed by Vannevar Bush, like in the 1940s, primarily to like solve World War II. But like when you build up a lot of basic research, it can't help. Those ideas can't help but turn themselves into something that is beneficial to all people. So yeah, that's
So you're saying,
I think in total, yeah, what I would summarize as is the reason R&D is really important is because it can help all people in a way that just growth itself cannot. That helping all people will lead to institutional trust that I think has left us, and that makes it really difficult to believe in something. So like the reason R&D is something that kind of is a self building cycle, right? Is it's just, when you have more R&D, you might be able, like it can improve people's like outcomes. When it improves people's outcomes, people can believe more, and when people believe more, then we can believe that achieving particular goals is actually possible instead of just impossible, and we should just blow it up.
So we're not in that nice little positive feedback loop right now.
Yeah.
We're basically outside of it. We're optimizing for stuff that matters for each company, like click-through rates or whatever they're into, little logistical improvements. But the big monumental changes that comes from government, because they have, they understand the positive externalities. It'll impact everyone. And
yeah,
so
exactly. Right.
Just
and like they're
getting that common cause, like
share those. Yeah.
Well, I was just saying we don't have that
you can
that common cause. We have a little bit of lag. There's just so much heat going through these systems
exactly.
that it's a little lag. But you go, Noah.
Oh my god. But no, what I truly think is that the fact that when we have that like common cause, it enables us to just think bigger, do bigger, and dream bigger, and that's something that like I want to support and want to figure out what the most effective way to enable like that opportunity and those dreams like is. Like I think fundamentally.
Would you be a communicator, Noah, or like how are you going to make a large scale impact in this world?
Yeah, I mean, like I think that fundamentally what I think I'd like to do is I'd like to go to grad school and be able to like both learn a lot of stuff and also just like try to develop a framework for like really making this happen. Do research into what actually like helps and what is most effective in terms of like R&D, and also being a communicator. Because I feel like I like talking about things and like I'm a pretty technical dude and I'm pretty nerdy, but I also just like think that it's really important and really helpful to like be able to spread the knowledge that you're creating with the world. I think that what is most important to me is trying to build an understanding of like how we can create a common cause and where the R&D like funds should probably most go, and how we can like recreate this system that has existed in the United States. So like building that understanding will enable the possibility of like building out policy that could further that. Because I guess the like one of the main things that like I think is that without policy change, it's really hard for an individual to really affect something. Like I can be a vegetarian personally, as I am, but like that doesn't actually cause that much difference on the grand scale of climate change, right? Like, whereas if we were able to institute a carbon tax and then give the funds that we like raise through that carbon tax back to like the lowest deciles of Americans, then that would be like hugely helpful and important and would actively change people's behavior, right? So it's like, I think that policy and trying to get policy change is the most effectual way to like really help people, but we need to have like the knowledge and like the ability to really learn more first. And that's part of why I think that it's really important for us to develop what policy goals we actually have and should have, in terms of that like R&D and in terms of figuring out like what makes sense, and then communicating.
Why the hell? All right, so I'm looking at the situation right now, and as in me talking on a podcast with you, Noah, it should totally be flip-flop. You should have your own podcast. Never interview me because I'm too stupid. But like, I know you were on Brown Political Review. You had a little podcast there. I feel like it'd be so dope to hear all your explorations. Like, take those 500 tabs and just have a couple episodes on them. Like, I feel like that'd be so cool to listen to. And then who knows, you get some political backing, some more sway, and then more of your tweets go viral.
Dude, I mean, that's part of why I respect so much like what you're doing. Like, I think that I do think that I'd like to do what you're doing. I just don't think I have had the like initiative to like really pull it off, you know? And that's why I'm so impressed with the whole shindig you got going on. Like, it's like my dream, you know? It's like that thing that you always wanted to do, and now you see your friends doing it, and you're just like, dude, that's so dope. That's so great. Like,
can we make this happen? No, I'll talk to you after. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I want to hear more of what's inside your head, because you know, an hour and a half doesn't do any justice to all this stuff that you got years of Jeopardy knowledge, quiz,
so
bowl,
many Wikipedia
physics,
articles,
chemistry.
man. Like,
fuck, we didn't even. Here's the thing, though. We didn't even talk about the craziest shit I've ever seen in high school, where someone that pretty much only played street hockey is now one of the varsity goalies in a Division I hockey team.
Oh my God.
Should we leave a cliffhanger? Like, what the hell do we do, Noah?
Probably you gotta, because also definitely get back to work.
I know. This has been this is fantastic. I want to ask one last over-under. Or like
overrated, underrated.
Is it over under? Yeah, overrated, underrated. Liberal arts.
Oh, dude, underrated. 100%. I think that like I love technical schools and I love like technology and like stuff like that. I love like the idea of vocational schools, but I think that it depends on the person. Like, I'm going to qualify this. I think that for a lot of people, like, probably it doesn't make the most sense to pursue like a liberal arts education. Like, if you don't really, I want to say this in a way that doesn't. All right, so yeah, we can edit this in post, right? Because I don't want to come off as like an elitist asshole. But I also, because it's just like the idea that for a lot of people, it doesn't make sense to go to college and spend a lot of money and possibly go in debt to go to a school that doesn't really help that much, where you could go to a vocational school that helps develop like a job that you want to do. I think that for a lot of people, it's unhelpful to like just pursue a college degree because that's like a thing. If you like if you feel like you will benefit from the massive exchange of ideas and from like the fact that you can pursue whatever you want and then possibly realize that this might not ever help you in the future, but then go like, this is so dope, I want to learn about it anyway. Like, if that is your mindset, then 100% liberal arts is the best thing. I love liberal arts with like all of my heart. Like, the ability to go to school and like be fucking learning about how we can think about water like thrown in the air and how that like relates to the particles that like boil and how boiling works and shit like that, at the same time that I'm reading about like Kierkegaard and Dostoevsky and just like all this crazy shit about existentialism, the fact that liberal arts enabled me to do that at like a really high level is something that I love and that I think that we should never take away from this world, because it enables so much knowledge and it enables the like exchange of ideas that we need to make research and development possible, and also just to make humanity progress. But I think that if you're just like, yo, I really want to learn to be a roofer, that you should probably not go the liberal arts route unless you feel like, I want to be a roofer, but I also want to like get more understanding of like the world around me and things like that. I mean, like, yeah, I guess more so what I'd say to bring it back in a way that like we can say without me like sounding like an elitist asshole is, I think that if you think that it makes sense and you want to learn and you love knowledge, that liberal arts is something that's truly beautiful. And that I think personally that knowledge is what helps push humanity forward and helps make people's lives better. So yes, underrated.
So basically take the Noah approach, dabble a lot so you can figure out what you love, and then once you're there, then you can really explore without sort of regret or fear of whatever people are saying, whether it's underrated, overrated, whatever. Just do it and crush it. Yeah. Noah, we're going to have a part 2 someday in the future. There's so much technical shit I want to ask you, so many stories we still got to get into, but this has been a blast, my man.
I hope I didn't come off as too much of an asshole. I feel like we started off and I sounded low-key like a dick, like definitely an asshole.
Not at all. If anything, it was me putting you on that framework, and then I think you defended it clearly. Just me being a douche. But thanks again, Noah. This is awesome. I'll let you get back to work. We'll have to talk about everything. And thanks again. It's always a blast.
Great talking.